Vlog. Shanae. Okay. You're on mute. Okay, you're back. Okay.
Hi everybody. Welcome to an introduction to drug awareness by Shreya Sadashri. So, hi Shreya, how are you today?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. And welcome everybody and thank you so much for joining. So, Shreya is from Connecticut, USA, and is an avid reader and Carnatic vocalist. She was first exposed to drug awareness through school, where a mandatory portion of the health syllabus shed light on the dangers of drugs. As the topic of drugs is often veiled, she seeks to introduce every teen to the truth about drugs so that they can make informed decisions and share their learnings with others. Thank you so much, Shreya. So I give the platform to you.
Thank you, Shanae. Hello, everyone. Today we will discuss and learn to recognize a couple different types of drugs and the dangers that they impose in our lives. I think we're having a bit of a technical issue. I'm not able to share screen.
You're not?
Yeah, can you try that again, maybe?
How has that happened? So try again.
Okay, now I'm able to.
Awesome.
So, again, just an introduction to drug awareness. So the first question we might ask is, why do we have this presentation? Well, drugs have invaded all aspects of society. We can see their presence in media, movies, music, and perhaps even in our own lives. The presence of drugs in some way has become normal, which hides its destructive nature. We need to keep ourselves safe, and the first step towards safety is learning about the problem. I learned about the dangers of drugs in school, and through this presentation, I would like to share what I know with you. So here are some basic statistics. Drug use is directly and indirectly responsible for 11.8 million deaths each year. An estimated 208 million people internationally consume illegal drugs. The number of people who use drugs today is 30% higher than it was in 2009. While an iota of this can be attributed to population growth, it's still too big of an increase to ignore. As we are the generation that wants to change this world, we need to be aware of the harm drugs can cause to us and to those around us. So, what is a drug? A drug is any substance, apart from food and water, which, when taken into the body, alters the body's function either physically or psychologically. Drugs can be legal, like alcohol, or they can be illegal. And some of the examples of common illegal drugs are ecstasy, cocaine, and many others. Some ingredients in drugs can include ammonia, chloroform, rat poison, and dog deworming substances. It's disgusting. As these drugs are, well, illegal, there's actually no law governing what can and cannot be put into them. So, a user never truly knows what exactly he or she is taking. So there are a couple different types of drugs. The first is depressants. Depressants slow down or depress mental and physical functions by inhibiting nerve impulses in the central nervous system. And a common example of this is alcohol. Stimulants, like coffee, speed up or stimulate the central nervous system, and they can actually make users feel more awake and alert, and nicotine is another example. Hallucinogens are drugs that distort the user's perception of reality, and these are also called psychedelics. One of the most important concepts when it comes to drug awareness is learning about tolerance. So, as tolerance to the drug increases, it becomes necessary for the user to take greater and greater quantities to get that same high. So, for example, when a person first starts, perhaps they only need 2 pills. and they reach that state of high. But as time goes on, their body adapts and they need more and more and more of that same drug to reach that same initial high. So they take more and more, and that also causes the dangers to go even higher. Some of the ways people take drugs, just to give a brief overview, are swallowing, so through the mouth, pills, to drink it, to put it in food. They can smoke it, they can snort it, which is essentially inhaling sharply through the nose, and people will also inject. So they use a needle, and the liquid is directly injected into the bloodstream, so they have to find a vein. A lot of times people do miss and they hit a nerve, and that has many, many, many other medical complications. So let's talk about some common drugs that we should all be aware of. So the most commonly used and abused drug, at least in the United States, is alcohol. The harmful use of alcohol actually results in 3.3 million deaths each year. Some of the long-term effects can include liver disease, oral cancer, permanent damage to the brain, as well as high BP, stroke, and heart-related diseases. You can see how the liver transitions from healthy to very damaged. Cannabis. So cannabis can actually have qualities of all three of the types of drugs we talked about. So depressants, stimulants, and hallucinogens. There are many, many names, street names, that are used for cannabis, and you can see them in the corner here. Some of the ones I've heard the most are weed, marijuana, Mary Jane. So the most commonly used illegal drug is marijuana. 158.8 million people use this drug. So marijuana gets its drug-like qualities, that high quality, from a chemical called THC, which is actually its main active ingredient. Some of the long-term effects can include severe anxiety and paranoia that you're being followed or watched, poor school performance and higher chances of dropping out, as well as impaired thinking and learning abilities, as well as the ability to perform complex tasks. So marijuana is actually referred to as the gateway drug. What that means is many people start off with marijuana, but then, as it's one of the lesser potent drugs than those out there, they need to go on to harder drugs, which are even more dangerous, to reach to get that same level of high. And so it becomes a gateway, and they open it into the more dangerous ones. In the United States, marijuana is also becoming legalized in many states. There are many opinions about this, but for a normal person, it is imperative to be aware of the negative effects that this drug can cause. The next one is MDMA. It's a short form for this really, really long chemical compound that I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce. So we just call it MDMA. One of the most common names for it is actually ecstasy, or X. This is a party drug, which is often used at music raves. It most commonly comes in pill form, but it can also be injected as a liquid, and that's given a completely different name, which is GHB. So MDMA is extremely dangerous. It can cause damage to portions of the brain that regulate critical functions such as learning, sleep, and emotion. It can lead to kidney failure, psychosis, and death. Actually, the small pills you see on these pictures here is MDMA. You can see how they're really, really colorful, and they look fun, which is how the maker really disguises the destructive nature of this drug. They can come in all different shapes. They're usually small size like this, and they don't look harmful. They look like candy, really, so you need to be careful. Cocaine. Cocaine is one of the most dangerous drugs known to man. Once a person begins taking it, it's almost impossible to become free of its grip physically and mentally. That's how deeply it'll affect you. It can lead to suicidal depression, delirium, or psychosis, as well as tooth decay, and death. One of the most common ways that it is taken is through snorting, which means they'll do a line, which is where the name comes from, and they'll inhale the powder sharply, and they'll use a card or something to create those lines. If you look to the bottom left corner, there are two images here of brain scans. These two images of the brain are PET scans of a normal person, picture on the left, and of a person on cocaine, picture on the right. The PET scan shows brain function by seeing how the brain uses glucose, the energy source for neurons. In these scans, the red color shows high use of glucose, yellow shows medium use, and blue shows the least use of glucose. Notice that many areas of the brain of the cocaine user do not use glucose as effectively as the brain of the normal person. This can be observed by the lower amounts of red in the right PET scan. LSD. So LSD is one of the most potent and dangerous hallucinogens. It is actually manufactured from lysergic acid, which is found on the ergot fungus of rye, the green. So LSD is often added to absorbent paper, such as blotter paper, and the paper is divided into small squares or tabs, with each square representing one dose called a hit. So that's where the name tab comes from as well. LSD is also most commonly known as acid. So you can see these small squares here. This is about the size of a hit of LSD. And again, like MDMA, they look very fun. They don't look dangerous. They're very colorful. And this is how the destructive nature, the dangerous nature of the drug is hidden. So the squares are very often colored and they have images printed on them. LSD can also be found on thin squares of gelatin. So an LSD user calls an LSD experience a trip. And the trip lasts about 12 hours. And during this time, the user experiences a serious disconnection from reality. When things go wrong, which happens very often, it's called a bad trip. And that's another name for a living hell. So when I was learning this, excuse me, in school, my teacher told us a couple stories of someone on LSD. So the first one was of a girl who had was experiencing a bad trip, and she hallucinated such that she did not see her hands. So whenever she looked at her hand, she would only see bone. She would not see blood. She would not see flesh. She would not see her nails, fingernails, anything. All she saw was bone. So she literally thought she was dead, and she was screaming, and there's nothing you can do because you're hallucinating. Another person hallucinated that they were trapped inside of a castle, and so they were running around trying to figure out how to exit the castle. And what ended up happening is they severely injured themselves by falling into a mirror, and so the glass shards got stuck everywhere, and they thought they were still in the castle. LSD is consumed by putting one of these small squares on your tongue, and the acid is absorbed through saliva. Some of the long-term effects include severe, terrifying thoughts and feelings, as well as flashbacks. Flashbacks are a recurrence of a bad LSD trip, which occur long after you take it, but there's no warning and you experience the same sort of hallucinations you did when you were taking it. It can lead to psychosis as well as schizophrenia. So these sheets here you see are actually sheets of LSD. So there's small squares on each one, but they're so colorful and they look like fun characters and all. So this is how makers will hide it. So if there are so many negative effects, why do people use illegal drugs? Well, they might want to fit in with a group of friends. They might be curious or just bored. They might be unaware of the consequences, and they might want to escape from their reality. But remember, The escape lasts only until the drug wears off. Drugs don't ever solve problems, and using them more times than often causes other problems on top of the ones the person had in the first place. So, how should we combat this? Well, first of all, let's come together. Let's support each other and teach each other. Let us become aware of the truth of drugs and stop anyone from falling prey to this destructive practice. We need to teach each other and build positivity, build a network of people who are going to guide us to make the right decision and an informed decision. And in that way, we can protect ourselves as well as those around us. If anyone would like more information, please visit this website to learn more. There are so many different types of drugs and they all have so many different effects. And this is just a really brief introduction into the topic, but we can all educate ourselves and together let's make the world a better place. Thank you. Shanae, over to you.
Thank you, Shreya. That was super informative and really interesting. So thank you so much for putting that presentation together for us.
Thank you.
That was awesome. Does anybody else have any questions while we're here? No worries if not. Okay. Thank you so much, Shreya.
Thank you.
That was awesome. And we definitely learned a lot. And this will be available on Facebook to watch back and play back anytime. So thank you, everybody. Have a lovely rest of your day. Take care. Bye.